Tommy, share with me and the audience your top 3 short game tips. I'd like a chipping one, a bunker, and a putting.
Yeah.
Let's go chipping first.
Put me on the spot, but I was semi-prepared with a chip when you said I'll have to do a chipping one. This is one that I quite like, and it was kind of how I was taught to chip in a way. And so for me, I was taught that you putt until you can't putt anymore. So really I could still putt this, but once you can't putt and once it gets a bit too far for a putt or there's a bit too much grass, you would carry on putting, but you would just add loft.
Okay.
So, for instance, I'll do it with a lob wedge, but you know, the first shot here, if I just put it with a lob wedge and like belly wedge it, that would be a putt. And then the next thing I would do if I had to loft it, did anybody get that one? That was good.
That was a nice shot.
So there's a couple of different things maybe in setup, but only minute. But I would carry on and just put this one with loft. And then to go further into that, so my typical setup for a putt with loft or a chip would be very similar to a putt. So the ball would be just from a setup base. Ball would be sort of somewhere in between the middle of my stance and my left heel. And I would rest the club on my left thigh. And then the rest of it then would be, I wouldn't add wrists into it or anything because I wouldn't add wrists with my putting stroke really, unless it got really long.
So for you, it's very, very similar to a putting stroke.
The first, this is what so very, very similar where putting for me, I know I use the saw grip, but it's very arms and shoulders. So if you just do the same, arms and shoulders there. There'll be certain differences when you chip, but I try and make it as similar as possible.
Look, just for a minute.
So
appreciate those 3 shots. They're pretty special.
So then, so I would spend a lot of time working on that, being really structured in your setup and adding that. You can even hit a putt first like I did, and then walk into the next ball and try and do exactly the same, but just hit a chip. And then onwards from that, just as a simple, I would call it distance control for chipping, I would have 3 clubs. So here I've picked a lob wedge, a pitching wedge and an 8-iron. So all 3 will be a different pace. They're going to land in a different spot, but they'll be a different pace. So you can pick whichever one you would normally chip with first. So if I went with a lob wedge, here's my setup, putt with loft. There's my lob wedge shot. And then if I took a wedge out straight away, and I'm going to do the exact same move, but I know I can't land it that far. So now I'll just figure out there's my setup, just inside the left heel, wedge. And then go. And then finally, I would do the exact same thing with an 8-iron. And if you do this to a bunch of different shots and different distances, you start gaining, the loft is always the natural loft on a club and you're never changing that because you're doing the putting stroke. And then you will get a feel by using different clubs, you start to get a feel with what you might prefer to chip with, how hard to hit each chip. It's only like hitting 3 different shots with a wedge or a 7-iron on a range really, and you're just doing different things. It's just different landing spots. So again, there's that setup. 8-iron will probably maybe just land on the green just short.
Oh, just got a little
It landed on the collar, didn't it? It landed on the worst spot.
You got a fringe boost.
A little fringe boost. I'll hit another. Maybe just land it. But again, always being pretty disciplined with my setup. I've gone for the fringe boost again. But even doing that, I would realise I would get better at that shot, but realise 8-iron's not the right shot for this one, and then I know I'd use one of the other 2. But that there, nothing really changes, and I just find it a very simple way of dialing in your chipping while actually doing something that you do all the time, putting.
I love it. Perfect. On to the next shot, bunker shot. Okay, Tommy, tip number 2. Give us your top tips from the sand, from in the bunker.
Okay, well, the first thing I'll do, I'm a big believer in having like setup stations, if you like, that are in the bunker. But couple of things that I will talk about is just understanding properly. I think there's always, everybody talks a lot about bunker. It's one of the only golf shots that you're not going to hit the golf ball. You're always hitting the sand, but people always ask where to hit the sand. And this is how I set it up quite often. So here's the ball that I'm going to hit. Now I'll put one ball directly behind it, and that will be 1 strike mark. So like as a general rule, I'll try and hit 1 golf ball behind. Now, while we stick on setup, I'm not trying to hit the golf ball. So every time you actually set up to any other shot, your ball position is relative to actually trying to strike the golf ball. So if you're on an iron or a chip shot, you're actually hitting the back of the ball and compressing down after that. Whereas in the bunker, you're trying to hit the sand. So I want my left heel on the line that I'm going to strike, and I want the club to actually match that line. And everything's going to try and return to there. So if you take those 2 things, there's the club on that line, there's my left heel on that line. Club face is variable. Open it as much as you like. I always prefer, if you're going to do anything, open it more, because we don't want, as soon as the leading edge starts digging into the sand, and that's where it's going to stop. But anyway, so there's the setup, and then the weight. One thing that we want to do, people often, I find, bounce the club off the sand. So some people dig too much with the leading edge. That would be wrong, but also people try and get it up and they feel like when they hit the sand, the club bounces. We want to be hitting down and under the ball through this area. So there's where we're going to make contact with the sand, but we're also going down at this point. So we're going to set the weight nicely on that left side. So now all of a sudden I've got left heel, shaft, and my sternum. They're behind the ball, but they're all on this mark, and they're all going to be ready to hit down to there. So from there, let's give the first one a go.
Love that. Would you say
Struck
with that,
a little bit behind the sand, but
would you say with that, Tom, 'cause it was quite an interesting point you made there in relation between the leading edge going down and players almost bottoming out too early. Would you then say you're almost trying to get the back of the golf club, because you've laid it so open, are you almost getting the back of the club to hit down?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that can be misconstrued, because I think sometimes people try and get the back and the club bounces, so they feel that they sort of get flicky in behind, sand comes in here and the back hits here and bounces, where again, what you're trying to do is get under the ball. And if you watch people that have the leading edge, the club, this sand's actually quite light, but the club will struggle to get through it enough. It's not designed for that. It's designed to get through grass, not heavy sand. So you're absolutely trying to hit down with the back of the club and try and get that smacking sound there.
It is an interesting take as well. What sort of acceleration are you looking to take when you come to hit a shot? And
now,
obviously it varies on the distance.
Yeah, it does. And it's funny really, because I, from an individual standpoint, I try and, if I'm ever working on my bunker play, I try and get the longest swing possible where I actually feel like I don't have to accelerate through the ball because I have energy in the backswing, so the club will fall, but I'm always going to be accelerating through. But I would never want, you know, like short swing and trying to force it out, just, even though it might work sometimes,
it might work because you taught me Fleetwood.
It's no good, but like I always like, Freddie Couples is a great image for me. I always think, and he'll be nice and long, and I just feel like the club gets under the ball more into the sand and pops up. That's what I always like. I find like it's very hard from here or shorter when you're accelerating to get any height on the ball.
Yeah.
And I think bunker play, there's nobody on the planet that gets too much height out of a bunker. Like I just don't have it. So like for me, again, I'm always...
A lot of this is based on setup, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm a big, you know, from when I've had lessons in the past, Butch Harmon said a great thing to me where he said, once the setup, grip or takeaway are wrong, the rest of the swing is spent trying to fix it, you know, or get one of those things right. So, and these are things that require nothing. It's just a bit of discipline and making sure you're on it. So, you know, and again, I always like weight going this way just because you're always trying to hit down into the sand. And that one went really nice and in the air, that one.
Love it. That is very, very good. Do you feel you're a strong bunker player?
I like bunkers, yeah. I like practicing in bunkers because there's so many different things you can do. I mean, there's a number of different lies, but you can have it, you know, you can have one teed up, you can have one, you know, plugged, you can have an average lie. You can have all those lies on an upslope. You
Yeah.
can have them all on a downslope.
Have less sand, more
They
sand.
can have less sand, more sand. You can hit different shots. There's so many different things you can do in a bunker. So I quite like being in a bunker and just, you know, like messing around and playing.
Love it. So Tommy currently world ranking 13th in the world. We want to get to that #1 spot, but where you are strong is your putting, and certainly long putts, right? Statistically, you're strong long putting and strong within 5 foot. Let's have your top tips for lag putting, long putting.
It's a good one because when you're sort of stronger at some things than other, you don't often like practice it or think of like things that you're going to be.
Well, even just go through your process.
Yeah.
People will probably pick up on something from that.
Yeah. Well, I think #1 thing that and my kids don't do this, and I'm always rattling it on, and I'll go and watch them, and I can see it straight away, is they don't walk around the hole. Like it's the most simple thing. Like this putt we've actually set up is uphill, and you can see pretty much most things because the putt's facing you. But so often, I mean, like, doesn't take much to start walking to the side and have a look. And I think people might struggle from this distance, but I think also you can hit a good putt and hit it to 8 feet and wonder, like, what happened there?
Yeah, because you've almost not assessed it.
You've not assessed it, yeah, and it's just walking around. I would say the important thing is to always you should always walk around the putt, but also read the putt from where the putt's facing you.
Yeah.
I always think of it as like reading a book. I wouldn't read a book like from that way. So that's one of the first things. Make sure you have a walk. Putt's easiest to read when it's facing you.
And you know what? Some players are a bit conscious about time and slowing up play, etc. Obviously, you're out on tour, and every single shot is outrageously important. But you know, when a good tip for a lot of golfers when they can do it is actually when you're almost getting onto the green.
Yeah. I think buggies maybe stop that sometimes because you drive a buggy up and then just get your club and walk to the green. But you can always be looking. You can always have a look. And there's a lot of green actually over here. But if we were stood over here and we'd parked up, you can start to see the green might be, flowing that way. There might be an edge where it's higher than the other. There's things that you can always see and pick up, and you start to build just a picture of that putt.
Exactly. You need to have an understanding. Like, say, if you're walking up to the green, or you're getting your putter out your bag, or whatever it is, or even if you would saying, "Hey, lads, I'll get the flag."
Yeah.
I'll go and get the flag for everybody, because that again is an opportunity for
if you're
playing at the weekend. You have a chance to be able to have a quick look at the putt.
I do like that one.
So always read it from the low side.
Yeah.
Have a quick look around when you get opportunity to do, and then from that, then what's kind of how do you best judge the speed control?
Like I say, when things come naturally to you, like it's hard to tell. But one thing I would always say is I'm always looking at the putt, but I like to make sure that the putter is always moving. I actually only have one practice stroke, but I don't spend long between that one practice stroke where it's a realistic hit at the putt, or rehearsal if you like, and then in and hit. But I just always think the putter should be moving at a pretty constant pace and rate. So then everything in your stroke is similar. There's no big hit and there's no massive deceleration, so that whenever you're having a feel for it, the putter is always in one kind of motion. So you have a decent assessment that motion there at that speed is going to hit the putt that far.
I get you. Yeah, that's a good idea. So it's like, it's just having those nice, steady practice putts.
Yeah.
Do you ever, when you're doing your practice putts there, what are you seeing in your mind? If we were to tap into the brain of Tommy Fleetwood now on those practice putts, is there anything visual you end up seeing?
For a long putt, I think you can be very, now you're trying to hold the putt, don't get me wrong, like that's the first to try and hold it, but very unspecific. So I'll have some kind of start line somewhere, or a point where I'm trying to aim at, and then the rest of it is I'm kind of looking at the hole, really. But again, we're 45 feet away here, nearly 50 feet. So I just want to break it down as simple as possible. There's so much space for the ball to roll. So I'll have some kind of point where I want to aim, and then let's the rest take over. Let's just judge the speed then. And you've got 2 things to worry about, and that's it.
Nice. Okay, so always read it from the low side, have a little bit of a look around, have those kind of look how Tommy's putter is flowing and flowing. Nice look at the hole. Go in. Do it. Oh! If you'd have boxed that then, that would have been ridiculous.
I thought I'd made it.
You try harder, Tommy. That was so good. The other thing as well, you'll notice, do it one more time. I'm almost going to commentate on what you do. So you'll notice, if you just go through your whole process, kind of, not reading the putt as much, but as you're setting over the ball now. So you'll notice looking at the hole, practice putt, looking at the hole, practice putt. And then stood over it, another look. I think there's also do it. That's awesome. There's an important lesson there you'll see where there wasn't much time between the very last look at the hole and the putt.
Yeah.
You know, you're looking at the hole, you've got your putter going back and forth, your head looking at the hole. As soon as you go down, one last look back and you're off.
Yeah, and it's not, I wouldn't recommend anybody to rush, but you know, just when you're ready, hit it. Don't you know? There's nothing else to do, so just let it go. I'm gonna hit one more because I feel like I'm on a.
You dialed in.
A top tip should be you should always stop when you've hit some good ones, but you just never know.
Come on, baby.
Ah, it's missed. But anyway.
Look at those speeds. Like literally 3 shots that are perfect. Tommy, you've been a pleasure with your time as always. Thank you, my friend.
Mate.
Be sure to check out Tommy on his social media. Top tips, exclusive here with Tommy Fleetwood. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.